Let's now add some vegetation to our level, some trees or something. To do that, head to the Scatter Object tool. At this point you'll be presented with a screen that looks entirely blank. That's because you haven't got any trees or models set. To do that, right click on vegetation, click Insert, and insert New Tree Controller. You'll be presented with a lot of different trees. Again, have a look at the Builder's Wiki to see what one you want. I'm going to go for one, I think it's called Sylvan. Now when you go to the Scatter Object tool, you should have a tree under the Trees section. You can place as many of these as you like. What you may notice is that they are placed and are invisible, or if you zoom in, you might not be seeing ones which are further away. The reason for this is because by default the toolset seems to use a very short speed tree rendering distance. It could be my machine, but I generally leave it on very far and don't suffer any performance problems. So I suggest you change that there. So that's just that drop down there, and click very far. You can carry on placing as many as you want, but that'll probably do for me. The scatter tool, much like any other tool, has properties itself. We can change these to increase the radius and the density here. If you don't want too many trees in one area, set a maximum density which is a little bit lower. You might also want to play around with the fill rate so you're not placing as many as fast, or if you're placing something like shrubs or grass, you may want to place more. At this point we'll use the exportable area. Now, we don't have an exportable area yet, so we'll click on Create an Exportable Area, which is this little purple plus here. Doing so will bring up a new dialog. Unfortunately I'm running out of area on my screen space here, and you'll see various boxes around the area. To define our area, click the Define Area button and drag it out. We want to be able to walk on the whole area, but if you've got a larger area where some of your space is used just for background scenery, you'll not want to make your whole area as walkable. Click on Layout Name and make sure you set in the layout name. This is a short 7-character string which must be unique for your area. I'm going to call mine Level Vid. The name of the area is what it gets called when you save your game, so make sure this is a human readable name. So I'll call mine Level Video. You can set various other properties here, such as the atmosphere sun color, which is useful if you want a sunset type scenario, and also the strength of the sun. These are more important when we look at lighting, which we'll do a bit later. You can also set things like fog here. There are lots of things here, so have a browse, but I won't talk you through them all right now. Click on Close. Now that we've got an exportable area, we can make a start point. Admit that I haven't actually left a lot of room for the player to do really anything in this level, but we'll put one on maybe this hill here, perhaps lower it a little bit so we've got somewhere to walk around. That'll do. And smooth it a little. That's better. So we'll set a start point using this little red flag here, set up start point. This is what is used for the walk map. Now we click our little animal footprint to generate pathfinding for active area, and this will take a little while. Once you've generated pathfinding, you should have lots of green and red dots. Red dots represent areas that the player cannot walk, whereas green dots they can walk. Now obviously we've got a lot of green dots on these hills up here which we don't really want the player to walk up. So we can manually restrict walking by inserting terrain collision. You can use the Build Terrain Collision to do that. Click that button here, and using left click and clicking on points we can build a wall which stops the player from being able to walk past a certain area. Right click to end the chain. If you're not happy with some collision that you've placed, you can always remove it by right clicking on it with the Build Terrain Collision selected. I'll quickly add a little bit more just to make sure that we can't get to those places on the map we don't want to be able to let the player walk. So after laying a few more walls in the way, we can now see something that looks a little bit more like where we want the player to be able to actually walk. the player will not be able to get up to these areas up here. You can also have a look at see how far into your water your player can go. Right now, they can walk a fair ways in, which we possibly don't want. So we're going to click on the water mesh, and here we have some properties for generating the automatic walkable depth. So I'm going to set that to 0.25, which will allow the player to walk much less deep into the water. If you want to see the boundaries created by the water, click on Show Collision Water Mesh, and we can see now our wall, which was a little bit further down, you can see from the red dots, is now a little bit higher up. And again, generating the path again should show us that the player can walk less far into the water now. Yeah, that's great. If you want to see the collision that your props are giving, you can see here the player can't walk through the building. The reason for that is because the building itself, the prop, has its own collision. Using the Visualize Collision Objects toggle, we can see how it's got a big square and a couple of other little bits sticking out. It's that big square that's giving most of the collision here that's preventing the player from walking through.